If you want to be a director, the most important thing that you need to do for yourself and for your crew and for your cast is to be prepared. Everything is in your preparation. That doesn't mean you can't leave room to improvise or to have spontaneous ideas. In fact, I find that being prepared is the most helpful thing you can do in order to leave room for that spontaneity, because if you're prepared, you can then get through what you need to get through and hopefully in an efficient way so that you have time to play. So, what does preparation look like? For your producer and your crew, preparation looks like storyboarding and having a clear vision for what you want the piece overall to be, and preparing to tell your story through the visual language techniques that we've talked about in other videos. For your actors, being prepared means a couple of different things. And the first step is casting. You need to have a good casting process. And it's okay if you don't exactly know how you want your actor to look or behave or any of those things. The casting process is my favorite part, honestly, to kind of try on different actors in this role and to really imagine or envision how they might be in the rest of it. When I was younger, I saw a video with Morgan Freeman, who was being asked, what it takes to be a good director in his mind as an actor. And he said, being a good director is being a good casting director. And at the time, I was kind of offended, like, I'm a director, everything comes from me and I shape the performance and all this stuff. And over the years, in working with actors and working as a director myself, I realized that he is absolutely correct. The person that you choose at the beginning to embody that role, that has to be the right choice. Now, what is right choice? There are a variety of different ways, and as a director, only you know. And so you do have to trust your instincts in that sense. This is what I think is an important casting process. One, you put out a casting call with the breakdowns of who you're looking for and attaching where you are open for open casting, regardless of race, ethnicity, gender, whatever it is that you're open to, and where you need things to be more specific. Have a casting call and see what comes in. You'll be surprised. You'll often get more responses than you expect. And you always need to have a, a cut, they're called sides, from the project that you're working on, which is typically a scene for the actors to read. Back in the old days, I used to love the in-person casting process, but these days it's just much easier to do a first casting call with a video submission. So you give everybody those sides, you tell them which role to read, and they find somebody to read their lines with, they videotape it, and they send it in. And that is your first way to do yes, no, and just kind of weed people out. Was this anywhere close to what you're looking for? And then the follow-up audition is really the more important audition, where you want to have that either in person or over Zoom, because you want to give them a different scene, one that's maybe a little bit more emotional or a little bit tougher or a little bit, really kind of digs at some of the more difficult things that you're going for in your project, to see how these actors, what their choices are. And then you always want to have some kind of redirect or some kind of direction to give them, because you want to see if they can take your direction, if they can shift their performance in various ways, or if they just give you the same read that they had practiced. Now, again, it's not necessarily wrong if they can't take direction, but again, in a casting process, sometimes these are the things where in your choices that you're going to have some limitations with an actor if they can't pivot, or that you're just going to need to build that time into the rehearsal process and working with this actor in terms of shaping the performance the way that you see it, if this person just fully embodies the character in how you know, in how they're reading it, that it's exactly what you want, you don't need to redirect, that's fine. These are just things, you know, because you haven't done every scene in the project, or something might come up where they just can't quite, you know, take that direction. So these are things to just consider as you're going through the casting process. And then I think, in addition to that process, then have them read in a third callback with other actors, especially if there are some kind of relationship like father-daughter, mother-daughter, son, family relationships, brother sister, you know, best friends. You want to basically do essentially a chemistry read uh, with these characters, and you'll see them. I mean, film is a visual medium, so even if you're doing a Zoom audition, you'll see kind of what they look like sharing space on the screen. Even if they're not in the same room, you'll see that. And that's the other part about casting, is you want to record everything. Even if it's in person, make sure you record that audition. Because at the end of the day, you are working in a visual medium, and it's not theater. It's not about how this person feels or takes up space in the real world. It's how they look and feel and take up space on the screen. And I have literally seen actors that I felt a presence and I felt their performance in person. And then when I went to review the tape, the it was bland. It was shocking. It was shocking to me because they had such great in-person presence. And I've seen other actors who gave what I thought was kind of a plain audition, but then when I went back and I looked at the tape, they just leapt off the screen and the camera loved them and all of that. So casting is such a crucial, crucial first step in directing. And if you want to work with non-actors, or if you want to work with your friends, that's totally fine. But you will need to consider how you are placing those actors and working with them. You might need to do more rehearsal. I think one of the best things in working with non-actors or untrained actors is to match their personality to the character. So you don't want to take your grumpy grandfather who, you know, just likes to sit in his chair and read, and make him the fun, bubbly, lovable grandfather in your project, because that's just not him. So you want to try and kind of work with what they naturally do so that you can let them be their natural selves as much as possible on screen if you're working with limited casting resources. But again, you'd be surprised. There are so many different online resources to reach out to actors. And so that is the first important step to directing actors, is to cast well and to really lean into your casting process.